Okay, so see, this is quite a few people here where the pelvis kind of runs off and spins too early. Basically, you see how the mass has gone this way. And so as a result, you know, the hands started on this little circle and the legs basically invaded where the hands should go, so the hands have to track away from him. That obviously affects the path, gets the club trapped behind him, path goes out to the right, etc. So, you know, the pelvic movement is really important. So on the way back, I've got him more tilted. It's just a little drill we're doing here. Got him more tilted and more wound with his hips. And then he feels like, in this swing here, that he pushes his glute back and gets his right hip underneath him. And you see how the hands now come back onto that little circle they started on, because he's got a ton of space, and we've created space with better pelvic movement. There's no thrust. You can see how his pressure trace has not gone into his toes, where it's gone into his toes here. So that's a good little solution to people who get a little bit thrusty and kind of get in the way of themselves. You know, so you see a lot of this with kids, especially where they just spin too early and push the hands out. Okay, let's jump into gears and look at this PGA Tour winner here. I've put a line against his butt. We'll call that a little pane of glass. And then I've put his pelvis sway and thrust number. So the sway is from side to side, the thrust is towards the ball. And we're just going to look at what happens to that pelvis in his golf swing to show you how the great players never early extend or thrust on the way down. And it really starts with on the way back here. You watch how he kind of just bumps off the ball. Look, you see the little pressure dot, this little yellow thing. That's showing where his center of mass is. So that's the middle of his pelvis. So there's a little bump to the right, and then he turns his right hip, and he makes a big turn with that right hip. And that right hip really pushes on that pane of glass there, doesn't it? So you can see his pelvis has swayed a couple of inches to the right. He's made a big right hip turn, and there's 0.1 inch of thrust towards the ball. So basically he's not thrust his pelvis at all. He's just made a big turn of his right hip. So there's a bump and a big turn. So he's really set himself up for success in the backswing here. Now from here, what we see a lot of amateurs do is they thrust their pelvis and their right hip towards the ball. What we see with the elite players is the right hip stays back and surfs into the ball. So you see that sway number, it's 1.2 inches at the moment. Watch it go the other way now. So he's now recentered his body. It's 0, 0. His left arm's coming down. He's got his both butt cheeks on that line now, and you see the center of his pelvis has moved back to the middle. And he's only thrust 0.5 inch towards the ball. So that's really a key move these players make. They turn that right hip really, really a lot, and then they surf that right hip. They keep it turned behind them as they move towards the ball, towards the target, and then they level their hips out. So now both butt cheeks are against that pane of glass there. And now from here, watch what happens. Now the left butt cheek goes against the glass, and the right butt cheek goes down. So they kind of opposite each other. And at no stage is there hardly any thrust, but less than 1 inch of thrust. And it's all caused by making that right hip work well. It's really important you move that right hip well, you understand.